Welcome to episode 10 of VR Roundtable. My name is Anthony. I am coming live from Sacramento, California. We have Gary coming from Leicester, England, and we have Steve coming from Louisville, Kentucky. So here we are, guys. It's episode 10, and we don't have a lot of time this week, so we're we got to hit it up real quick. So let's just go ahead and get right into the news right away. Gary, what do you have as the big news story for the week?
Well, there's not really any one big news story at the moment. We've got a few little ones that we can go through. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw this VR sales analysis that was published. It's by a company called Super Data Research, and how they came to these results that they got on the sales of the headsets. Basically, they're giving reports for the amount of numbers of headsets that are going to be sold by the end of 2016 based on various things, really. But it's actually based on sort of retail sales checks, executive interviews, pricing data, survey-based panels, and digital content purchases collected from data providers. So they've got a few different sources around there, and what they've been saying is that by the end of 2016, Oculus Rift should sell 355,000 units approximately. The HTC Vive is 420,000 units. PlayStation VR is the big one. They estimate it's going to sell around 2,602,000 units. And then you've got the mobile platforms as well. The Google Daydream, 450,000, and Gear VR, 2,316,000. So there's some big numbers there, and quite a few actually that because I mean, Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive, they're selling sort of quite reasonable numbers, I think, for where they are at the moment, and considering the amount they cost. Did you guys see this at all?
Yeah, I saw it. If it's worldwide numbers, it's probably relatively within range, I think, because I think a lot of people, like, you look at the HTC Vive and it's 400 and something thousand or whatever. That sounds like, wow, that's an incredible amount. There's no way they could get that many that fast. But what we don't realize is over in Asia, they're selling a lot of these things. And so when you really look at the total worldwide numbers with Christmas sales, and people typically, if they're going to treat themselves to a really big family purchase, it could happen at Christmas time. So it might be a wee bit optimistic, but I think it's relatively within range. It doesn't like shock me, but I know there's people that have seen these numbers and they're like, whoa, they're way out, they're way optimistic. But I mean, it's worldwide,
Yeah. I mean, just quickly, these PlayStation VR numbers, those 2 million units, over 2.5 million units, it would be fantastic if we could get that many units out there.
Yeah, it runs contrary to everything we've kind of heard so far in terms of numbers. We've heard the 2 million number a few times, but on the Oculus and the Vive, we've constantly been told numbers lower than that. So I didn't have a chance to read on how they came to these numbers. So I'd be very curious there. But you know what? If they're right, or even if they're half right, that's better than what we've heard to date.
The PlayStation numbers, the only way they're going to hit those numbers is if it becomes a key Christmas gift, and if Sony can keep putting more product into the channel and replenishing the channel, especially the family bundle that has, the camera and the Move controllers and PlayStation Worlds. But if it becomes this Christmas gift, I think it can hit the 2.6 million. I mean, it's a lot, but it easily could happen.
Yeah, let's hope that does happen. The other thing on there was an update last week as well for the Unreal Engine. It's gone to version 4.14, which is now including, I thought it already included this, but maybe it was a beta or something, I'm not too sure, but it now includes the forward renderer, which is something that the Unity engine has had for a while. And that's really the thing, because it allows multi-sampling anti-aliasing, which is a better form of anti-aliasing for VR because it can make things look a lot crisper. And a lot of people have noticed really in the Unreal Engine, when games are produced in that, although they look fantastic, they do have sort of this aliasing problem. They sort of look a little bit blurry in places. But Unreal have done these, Epic have done these benchmarks for this deferred rendering because it can actually improve performance as well on certain games. And they're suggesting that they did one benchmark in their game Robo Recall that's coming out for the Oculus Touch. And they're claiming it could be up to sort of 22% faster than the standard deferred rendering technique that they use. So I think that's just a small news story, but it's it'd be good to see all these Unreal games get some kind of an update for this. I don't know how easy it is to implement this forward renderer into titles, because that's something that I've noticed and a few people have noticed that really sort of takes you out of these games. Although you can tell they've got fantastic graphics and they look great on the screen, in the headset they just have this sort of a little bit blurry look about them, really.
Yeah, all I've noticed is the Unity ones seem to run smoother to me. Just on the Vive, the Unity ones seem to run smoother. So hopefully this will improve their performance a little bit.
Yeah, I've noticed the same thing, and I believe, it's a little speculation on my part, but and I could have my development environment wrong, but that Servios, the developer of raw data, they kind of made a short announcement that kind of said that they're going to start focusing now more on optimization and stuff and less on content. So that is conveniently timed with this announcement. So from Unreal, and I'm pretty sure that game's in Unreal, so that makes sense, and that's an ideal candidate in my mind to get this newer forward rendering technology implemented.
Yeah, I saw that announcement as well, and it does seem like a bit of a coincidence that they've announced that now it's got this forward renderer. So hopefully they're working to implement it, and it should improve performance. I mean, raw data was actually one of the ones that was looking okay. It was quite sharp, but it did have sort of a shimmering effect which is, I guess, to do with the way they're anti-aliasing that game. But yeah, it'd be good if they can get that looking a little bit better and performing a little bit better, because people have been having problems with that. Just moving on as well, we mentioned in the last episode about the TPCast Wireless add-on for the HTC Vive. And there's been a little bit more information. There's not too much, because again, there's been so much concern about the latency over this product, because that's really the big thing that's going to hold it back, I guess. And originally there were reports that it was around 15 milliseconds latency on the unit. Now that they didn't confirm if that was additional latency or if that was total latency for the unit, but they've seemed to have confirmed a few things. That on their website, they changed it to 2 milliseconds latency. And a guy at HTC actually commented saying that from their reports, it's 2 milliseconds. It's additional latency on top of the latency that you've got now. The 15 millisecond figure that they quoted originally was based on an older model of the headset. So hopefully that should set some people's mind at ease. It's still not really a definitive answer on anything from what I can see, but 2 milliseconds additional latency on the headset isn't really going to affect too much, I wouldn't think. So that's good to hear. And yeah, I'll probably, when it's released next year and becomes available worldwide, I probably will jump on board with this thing if I can get a hold of it. But again, it'll be good to wait for some reviews and see what's happening.
Yeah, I'm curious. I started thinking about it more since our last show, and we tend to think of this as one-way communication from the PC to the HMD, because that's displaying the two screens. But really, you got latency going the other way as well. You know, the Vive controllers communicate to the headset, which then communicates back to the PC over USB. So latency in this equation comes both ways. And they updated their page, and I noticed that you know, something we also talked about last week was there does appear to be a DC power plug, and I couldn't really make it out, but a USB. Or maybe it was an HDMI or something. So there was a couple ports. One clearly looked like a DC power supply input to me. So you know, it's good to kind of have that semi-confirmed, even though I don't think they have. There are ports on it. So to me, that's good.
Yeah, it's good news, and if it does work out, it works the way they say it can work, then that'd be fantastic. And like you say, you have got latency. It's incredible to get this 2 milliseconds latency. It's almost like they've got no encoding or decoding of the image or anything like that being used, because it's so quick to get that kind of performance. But we'll see anyway. See what happens. What do you think, Anthony? Did you see the update?
Honestly, I haven't read too much about it. I remember last week you said something about line of sight.
Yeah.
What's that about? Like, are you going to have to put something up on your ceiling for it to have line of sight of your head, or?
Yeah, I think so. What it is, it comes with a little transmitter. There was a photo of this as well on one of the Reddit pages, I think, but it comes with a little transmitter that connects via USB to the PC. And then that comes on a cable. It'll have to be positioned, somewhere on the ceiling, I would think, something like that, just so it's got the best view of the top of your head, where the actual unit sits on top of the HTC Vive. So, it does have to have that, I think.
I guess if you did have it on your ceiling, I mean, you probably won't get occluded too often, I would think, because you know it's always. I mean, you'd have to walk pretty far away or something.
Yeah, I think it's like if you're bending over to pick something up off the ground or something like that. I don't know. I don't really know how well it works. I don't think it's like it can sort of penetrate certain things, but they're saying, I mean, I don't know a lot about it, but they're saying like even the moisture of your skin can block it. So it does seem like it's pretty susceptible to occlusion. But yeah, again, we'll see how it turns out. That's really all I've got. The other thing I wanted to quickly mention, because somebody commented on our last show about the how we didn't mention the asynchronous space warp update for the Oculus, and just to quickly mention, that's now like in the public version of the Oculus software, so everybody's got access to asynchronous space warp now, which is a good thing. And we did talk a lot about asynchronous space warp a few shows ago when it was originally announced, so there's not really too much more to say about that. And also on Steam, the asynchronous reprojection has now come out of the beta, so it's available on the standard Steam VR as well. So just to mention those two things. But yeah, I don't know if you guys have got any other little bits of news you want to quickly mention.
I got a couple quick ones real quick. Let's see. Oh, HTC support. I did want to mention this because in the very first episode of VR Roundtable, the main topic was I had this like nightmare horror story about HTC support and getting my 3-in-1 cable replaced and the whole thing that happened with that. And what I want to mention is HTC, it does appear that they are making a legitimate effort to try to get their support dialed in a little bit better. And what they're doing is they're going on Reddit and they're looking up old Reddit posts where people were complaining about, you know, they've had my controller for 3 months, or, you know, I sent my lighthouse a month ago, blah, 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 you know, all the different horror stories. And what they're doing is they're contacting those people. They're sending them private messages and asking them, is there anything we can do to try to, you know, has your situation been rectified? You know, can we help you in any way? So, because they contacted me, and I'm guessing that they saw some of my posts where I was complaining about it, and they checked in with me to make sure that everything worked out for me. And I was like, oh yeah, everything did work out. So it does appear that maybe they've recognized that they do have this problem here in the USA, or they did have this problem here in the USA with the support. And so hopefully they're making some inroads into that. So I don't know if it's actually working, if it's mostly lip service or what, but I will say that they are actually out there contacting people. One other quick little thing, I don't know if anybody heard about the MIT wireless solution. I didn't really read too much into this, but it's just another thing that shows that we are starting to move in that wireless direction. So that looks good. And it gives us hope that this TPCast thing is legitimate, because if MIT, MIT is pretty damn legitimate. So, and then Martian VR, this thing was released, and I don't know, it came out for, I believe, PlayStation VR and for the Vive. I don't know if it was Oculus too, all three of them, but the early word on Martian VR, did anybody get it? I didn't get it.
No, I didn't.
I did not either. Nope.
Okay, yeah, the early word on it is that it shouldn't cost more than like $5 or something. That's what I'm hearing. Or it should just be a free experience straight up. That's what I'm hearing from a lot of reviews of people. I don't think I've seen one review that has been like, oh no, this is worth every penny. Back when Everest came out, Everest VR, there was a lot of complaining about that price as well, but there were a handful of people that were saying it's worth it, for them. But with Martian VR, I haven't heard any of that. So maybe be a little bit cautious on that one before picking it up. And that's basically the only news stories I have. Steve, was there anything that caught your eye?
The only thing that we haven't touched on that, and it hardly qualifies as news, but the Video Game Awards, they announced their nominees, and I saw a thread on GAF, and the poster on GAF, he or she just listed a few categories, and then I clicked and I was like, man, I really hope there's a VR category, just for sake of industry. And I clicked on the page loaded like crap, but there was indeed a VR category. Fortunately, it was just filled with PlayStation VR games. So it was Eve Valkyrie, Batman, Job Simulator. I'm drawing a blank. A couple of Rez and Thumper. I think there's only 5, so they're all PlayStation VR, and I guess at least one of them is on Vive. So good news is it's a category on the Video Game Awards. The bad news is that they've still kind of restricted the market a little bit.
Yeah, I did see that too, and it's a bit of a shame. I don't know if that, hopefully, as it becomes more popular, they can transition it over to PC VR as well. But
I can't believe they'd have those. I mean, Job Simulator as the PlayStation VR version? No way. Job Simulator as the Vive version? Okay, I can understand that. But I feel bad for like Vanishing Realms and, some of the games that maybe should get a little bit of love on the Vive side.
Yep, I agree. Maybe we should, on a future show, do our awards.
Yeah,
oh yeah, we'll definitely do that. We're definitely going to do that. Top 5 in all categories.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if you want to move on to what we've all been playing this week. Then I don't know if you guys have found anything new out there, but
why don't you kick it off, Gary?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll go for the big one first, because this has just hit yesterday for me over here, and it was one that just seemed to be all over the Reddit page of Vive and Oculus and PlayStation VR. Actually, they want it too, but it's Google Earth VR, and I've only been in for sort of 10 to 15 minutes, something like that at the moment. But this is something that was, I mean, everybody who gets VR and they look at Google Earth and they just think from straight away how great it will be to experience that in VR. But this is probably even better than I could ever have hoped for. The way it works is so smooth and it's seamless, and everything, all the major cities are rendered in sort of 3D. You've got all the differing heights, the mountains and things like that. You can just swoop over. You've got some features that are built into it, so you can go to various cities and take a few tours and things like that. I've not really experimented with the tours, but yeah, did you guys see this, and if you had a chance to give it a go at all?
Yeah, I hopped into it for 15, 20 minutes and until I had to hop out. I would have stayed longer. It really impressed me. Like you, I don't have a lot of comments about all the things that you can do. There's tours. They have some cities kind of suggested for you. I looked at New York City because it's a place I've been to several times and somewhat familiar with. And then, of course, I had to fly home and take a look at the neighborhood. And it's really, really impressive. I want to spend more time in it just because I zoomed into my house as low as it would go. And it was kind of on the street, and you're still floating a little above, and things are kind of scaled small, even when you're zoomed all the way down. But I could look over my whole subdivision and kind of look left and right, and all the hill topography. I don't think it was perfectly accurate, but it was accurate enough that it felt like I was, in a drone about 10 feet above my house. So very, very, very impressive. Google implemented it very well. The performance is really good. The only thing I can comment on that I would change if I could is there's a lot of texture loading, and from what I understand, and I could be wrong, is that it's actually downloading some of this data on the fly as you load it, as opposed to it being preloaded onto your hard drive. And a tip that I read after the fact, and I didn't have a chance to try, but apparently there's a setting where you can enable human scale, or I don't remember what they call it, but basically you can tell it to drill down further, and when you do that, it actually gives you a proportional human level scale, so that if you're in front of your house, it'll be more true to the appropriate scale. So I'll have to enable that next time I go in. But big thumbs up from me to Google on this one.
Yeah, I tried it as well, and I was like, "Damn, this is crazy, man." When it first loads up, and it's showing you like some of the different cities, and kind of just, this is Google Earth and everything. Oh my God, I was like, "This is crazy." At one point, I loaded up, I think it was Tokyo, and it was like Tokyo Tower, which it kind of almost looks like the Eiffel Tower, but it's not. And I had that one loaded up, and I was just looking at this whole entire city, and it's slowly like constructing, and like getting the fine details are starting to pop in and stuff like that. And I'm just looking around at it, and after a while, I just like sat down on my carpet, and was just kicking back, and like, this city is just completely surrounding me. And it was a really cool experience. And then, if you take your controller, you can grab the sun, and you can move the sun into any position for the time of day. And I don't know if you guys tried, but one of the other ones was um, like Utah or Arizona or something, like the Grand Canyon or something like that. And when you go to that one and you make it like nighttime, and you see just a million stars everywhere, oh, it looked really cool. And it seemed like almost when you're changing the times, even at night, it's changing like actually where the Earth is in relation to, all the different stars and stuff. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, oh my God, this is 2016. This is the first year of VR. This is like the year of VR. And we just started. I mean, we're at the very infancy of it. And to see something like Google Earth VR, and to just imagine like 3 or 4 years down the line, what something like this, it's going to be an incredible educational tool for, think of like geography, just people learning like where states are, where cities are. I never really cared that much about geography and knew all that much of, like, how there's people that can name like the capital of every single state, blah, blah, blah. I'm not that good at that. But if I was growing up and going to high school and stuff like, and I had this type of thing to help me out, and to be able to see where everything is, and zoom out and zoom in, it's incredible, man. I mean, I'll say that some of the posts that I've read on Reddit seem to be going a little bit overboard, because like you're saying, Steve, when you zoom into your house, which is something I did too, I think everybody wants to go check out their own neighborhood. you know. So I zoomed into my house and I zoomed all the way down in, and there was like a car in the driveway, and we have a basket hoop that's like on our sidewalk kind of, and the basket hoop was there and stuff. But the house is kind of, it's like the photogrammetry, where if you go into some of the photogrammetry stuff, they'll have like tables and chairs and stuff, but the edges will be like sharp and turned and kind of warped and stuff. And my house was kind of like that, but I didn't do the human mode or whatever to actually stand on the street. That would be super awesome. I mean, if you could do that where you can literally stand on the street of like New York and Tokyo and Paris and all that. I mean, it's just they're going to get better and better with it over the years. It's going to be amazing.
You know how in every corny, or even not corny, but in action movies, how, you know, a spy or something, they have to go and infiltrate a building, and they go, let's pull up the blueprints to that building so we can see the HVAC duct system. This is how we're going to get in. And it was the first kind of real world glimpse of that. Like, it's for the first time I felt like, okay, hold on, you know, that may be doable now, you know. This data is out there, and I know they're capturing it all from overhead satellites and trucks and things driving around on streets. But it's the first time that kind of, that's the first thing that kind of came to my mind, and I was like, okay, now it's not just, you know, unimaginable movie fiction. It's you know, not there yet, but the first step is.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's there yet, but I found that option with the human height option that's in the settings, and I did go down to a few places, and I guess, I mean, the reason they've not allowed that as default is because the textures are so distorted when you get up close to things at the moment that it doesn't really look particularly good. And you know how they've rendered all the trees and things like that, it's very basic at the moment. But yeah, like you say, Anthony, it's like looking towards the future, 3 years down the line, what is this going to look like? And it's good enough at the moment. But the reaction on Reddit is something that you mentioned, Anthony, and yeah, you've got people saying that they're in tears and all this kind of thing, which is probably a little bit overboard for me. But it's certainly a valuable VR experience. And the only downside to it at the moment that I saw is that it's not available for the Oculus headsets, although it's available on Steam. The Rift can't use it, although I think there is something that I read just before coming on where they have found a way around this now. So just for people out there, if you've got an Oculus Rift and you want to give this a try, then just go onto the Oculus subreddit and you'll see that there is a way to do it now.
Hey, did you guys hear there's a rumor that Google might be considering buying HTC?
Yeah, I think it came from a BBC News story, and I did read that story. It does look like the guy who wrote that is just sort of speculating, really. I'm not too sure how much stock he's got, what sources he's using for that.
But you know what? I mean, I never actually thought about it, but HTC makes the Google Pixel phone, right? I mean, they have the contract for that. And if you look at HTC's revenues, like 90% of their revenues are coming directly from that Pixel phone, and then like the rest of it is coming from the Vive. And it kind of makes sense for Google to, I mean, because the Vive is already there. I mean, that gives Google a platform. I mean, they did remember, we have Tilt Brush, and now we have Google Earth VR, and we're the only ones that have that, right? So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's possible, I suppose. Yeah, I'm not too sure. We'll keep our eye on that. But just another couple of quick other things, because with Oculus Touch coming out in a few weeks, they've put with the latest update of the Oculus software, which incorporates the asynchronous spacewalk for the public. They've also, in the library, everybody's added these, have added these two new things called the Oculus Touch tutorial demo and a little short demo called First Contact as well for the touch controllers. And anybody who owns an HTC Vive can actually go in and use the Revive application to try these out. So I went in and quickly gave these a go, and the First Contact demo is incredible. I mean, when you go through the touch tutorial, it's very basic, and you know pretty much what to expect from the Steam demo if you own a HTC Vive. But with the first contact, you're going in and it's you find yourself in this sort of future. Well, it's half futuristic, half retro kind of environment, really. And there's a little robot in front of you that you can tap on the head, close his head down, and then it will spring into life. It will start handing you these cartridges, and you put these cartridges into this machine that's next to you, and you've got all these sort of retro looking displays around here and a VHS tape to your right. So it's sort of mixing futuristic with this retro kind of stuff, which really appeals to me. And the environment looks incredible. There's something just how clear it is and the amount of detail that they've got going on in all of these things. But you get these cartridges that this robot hands you, and you place them in, and these cartridges are basically superpowers for which you can just do various things with your hands. So it's like an introduction to using motion controllers in virtual space, really. And I recommend that for everybody as well. They're all free demos, so you can give them a try if you've got HTC Vive now. And obviously anybody who gets Oculus Touch, these will probably be one of the first things that they'll try.
So to get these demos, do you go to the Oculus store and you sign in? Like, did you, because like to get Lucky's Tale and stuff, you create like an account and you download it. And so is that where you get that?
Yeah, what you have to do with this one, because it's an automatic update, they automatically download to your library, so you won't find them in the Oculus store. But if you go into the Oculus application on your desktop, then you'll see a little bit at the top which will say your library, and if you go down to the bottom of that, you'll find them there. And I think in the latest version of Revive that's just gone up, he's now added them, so they should just appear in your Steam library as well. You know how they do on the dashboard, you've got the little Revive section on the dashboard of Steam VR. You should find them in there now as well. I've not actually tried that. I had to go around and sort of try them in a slightly different way using the Revive injector, which is a little bit more long-winded.
Yeah, I saw a video of the guy doing the where it's the tutorial and you're learning to touch the different buttons and have your hands do different motions and stuff. It looked really cool. In fact, I was going to try to load that up before our show, and then the whole Google Earth thing hit, and I was like, oh, let me try Google Earth. And so I kind of got distracted and didn't get back to that. But I definitely want to check that out. Steve, did you get the chance to check that out at all?
No, I saw it. And Gary, I'm curious, I saw a video as well, and it showed all the several gestures, like, you can point with your finger, and I want to say there was like a thumbs up gesture. How did that work with the Vive controller? Do you think it worked okay, or kind of felt cheesy?
Yeah. I think it works as well as they can possibly get it to work with the Vive controller at the moment. It's not perfect because obviously you've got the analog sticks on the touch controllers. The weird thing is that I found is that when you're in real life, you're holding these Vive controllers, but when you're in virtual space and you see the touch controllers in your hand, in a weird way, there's like it's sometimes it feels like it's trying to bridge the gap between the Vive controllers and the touch controllers, and you can sort of fool yourself into thinking you're holding these touch controllers in an odd way. But the way they've done it, they've split the trackpad down, so you've got a quarter, I think it's split down into sort of thirds, and you've got like a section where you can activate the analog stick, and then your trackpad will work as an analog stick. Then you've got it split down further into the two buttons on either side of the touch controller, and it works okay. It's not perfect, and I don't think they can possibly get it perfect. But with reference to your gesture question, Steve, they've got basically because you've got the capacitive touch on the touch controllers, it knows when your fingers are not on the buttons. You've not got that on the trigger of the HTC Vive controller. So basically when you're not pushing the button down, it will point your finger out. But you can you only have to sort of touch it very slightly on the triggers, and it will know that your finger's down then. And I think it only points it down if you're actually gripping, because you've got the grip buttons on the controller. So if you're gripping those, it'll close your other three fingers down, and then it'll leave the other one out. Other than that, you've just got like a resting position for your hand. So with a little bit of experimentation, you can work around it. And I didn't really find that to be too much of a problem. Once you get used to how it works, it's not really too much of a problem. When I tried the Oculus Touch controllers, it's obviously a little bit more intuitive because you can see a more accurate representation of what you're holding in your hands with that. But it worked pretty well, and it's definitely a good sign if we can sort of get access to these slightly higher quality titles that are going to be coming out on the Touch. Then that'd be great.
Do you think if you were playing a fast-paced action game, like what's the one game they showed where you kind of like break the robots apart limb from limb, do you think you could pull that off with the Vive controllers?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how that one works. I know with the one I think it's Robo Recall, the one you're talking about, but it's yeah, I don't think it'd be too much of a problem. I think the big problem for me would be navigating with the analog sticks, using the touchpad on the Vive. That's really the big thing, because it's not the same, and it's a problem that I have in some Vive games anyway. And on these Vive controllers, there's a big thing about how a lot of people are having problems with the touchpads in particular. They seem to reduce in performance over time as they get worn down a little bit. And I had a problem on my old controller, and people have mentioned this before, especially with this Revive application coming out. A few of the guys on the subreddit post have mentioned how, because their touchpad controller doesn't work particularly efficiently, it does cause problems, because you do have to be so accurate in using the touch controllers in these demos. But I don't know. I honestly can't say for sure how well it would perform in a fast-paced gaming situation. But for the demos that I tried, it worked pretty well.
I'm sure when all the games come out, like there's going to be people dedicated to trying like every single game and reporting exactly, this game works almost perfectly on the Vive. This one is kind of so-so, it's going to be kind of like that. But I kind of anticipate wanting to possibly buy some actual Oculus games. I haven't bought a single Oculus game yet officially, but when December 6th hits, and if people are, I mean, I don't know like the full list of games and all that, but like Dead and Buried, that was one where if they were selling it, I might have actually bought that, but we have to wait and see how it actually, works.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is with buying things on the Oculus store and using Revive to use them in the HTC Vive. The problem is that could all go away at any moment. If Oculus decided they didn't want to allow us to do that anymore, then they could block us from doing that. So it's a bit of a risk to purchase anything from the Oculus store if you own a Vive. But it's tempting, because there are going to be some really high quality games out there. But that's pretty much all I've got to say on what I've been playing this week. It's been a little bit quiet, but why don't we move on to you, Anthony? What have you been playing this week?
Okay, since the last episode, I actually haven't been playing a ton of stuff. But one thing I did want to mention is, because I got the PlayStation 4 Pro, and I got it primarily with PSVR, to try to get a little bit better frame rates, maybe things a little bit crisper, a little bit cleaner. PlayStation VR was like 85% of the reason why I got the Pro. But the other 15% is, in my living room, I do have this 4K TV. It's a Sony 4K TV, and it's an older one. When it first came out, actually, like if I had bought that Sony TV like the day it came out, it was like $5,000. But I got it like 18 months later for like $1,700, if you can believe it fell that much. But it was a super expensive 4K TV back when it first came out. But anyway, it doesn't have HDR, but it's like I wanted to try the PS4 Pro on it and kind of check it out, and then also see, go back to some flat, normal type games and see if I could enjoy them after being in VR. Because I'll be honest, since the Vive and since PSVR, I have had virtually no interest in playing regular old games on like the Xbox or PlayStation or anything like that. So I rented Call of Duty Infinite Warfare because I didn't have a game that was using the Pro. So I rented that one from Redbox, and I hooked it up to my my 4K TV, and I tried it out, and it does look good. I mean, it does look pretty damn beautiful. I was sitting really close to the TV. I I have this little love seat that is like perpendicular to where the normal sofa is, and I swung it around. I got really close to my 4K TV, and I was playing this Call of Duty, and it did look pretty damn good. And then on Sunday, a buddy of mine, he has Ratchet and Clank, and I had heard that the Ratchet and Clank PS4 game was supposed to just look drop dead gorgeous in 4K. And he came over, and we were watching some football games and stuff, but he let me borrow Ratchet and Clank, and I tried it on it. He wanted to check it out, he wanted to see it in 4K, and I tried it on there, and it looked really beautiful. But at the same time, I have to say that the difference is, at least maybe it's my 4K TV is just not that good of a 4K TV, even though it was incredibly expensive originally. The difference was minor. You had to really look. Like, I was, moving the Ratchet and Clank guys around, and like you would see like bushes and stuff. And if you looked at the bushes, they were like higher detailed, and there were little touches here and there, and kind of the color and the lighting was a little bit improved, but it really was not a major difference at all. In fact, I know some people, well, again, this could be my 4K TV is just not very good. Maybe if I had like one of these super expensive OLED TVs, it would look absolutely incredible. But on my TV, I think if you did like a double blind test with just regular people, I don't know that it's something that would really prove out that you can always tell which one is the 4K and which one is the 1080p if it's running on the same identical display that has a good upscaler already. So I'd have to say I'm really glad that I'm into PSVR, because I know that the Pro is giving a real improvement there. But on the 4K, it was a letdown. And I have to say that the flat games, man, they just don't do it for me. I'm going to try to play the Ratchet and Clank a little bit more because it's so colorful. It's so cute, and like if I have a day off work and I'm just kind of bored and I don't want to play VR for a little bit, take a little break from VR, I'll try the Ratchet and Clank. But honestly, if anybody out there is like, because there's threads on NeoGAF where people are like, I'm gonna buy a new TV for this and stuff, and I'm like, damn, I don't know if it's really worth it. 4K to me, I'm a graphics whore, and I notice things. I really do. Like the jump from 480p to 720p was incredible, and the jump from 720p and 1080i jumping to 1080p, that was pretty significant as well. This, to me, the equivalent to me is like if anybody had the PlayStation 2 and you were using like an S video cable and then you went to the component cable, that's like the difference here. It's incredibly minor from what I've seen. Again, though, caveat being that in the year 2017, they're going to be working harder on this stuff, and like Horizon Zero Dawn and Spider-Man and some of the games that the PS4 has coming next year might take a hell of a lot more advantage of it. But from what I've seen so far, I'd be like, I'm glad I have it from a VR standpoint, but 4K kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
Steve, you want to ring in on that?
I don't have a 4K set.
Okay.
I have played Ratchet and Clank though, so it has that very Pixar quality art style to it, and my blind gut suggests that there's probably a point of diminishing returns and trying to get that up to 4K. It's a game that wouldn't have been designed with that in mind. So again, I haven't tried it. From what I've read, you can expect, like you mentioned, some of those next wave of games like Horizon and Spider-Man and things like that to probably leverage the resolution bump a little more. So I think I have looked at some 4K, not with the PS4 Pro, and I think as a resolution jump itself, it does kind of warrant its own existence. So games just may have to catch up a little bit.
Oh, one thing I did see is in the Call of Duty Infinite Warfare in the single player campaign. At one point you're going through this like futuristic city, and there's billboards and like little advertisements and stuff that are placed around um, on like the sidewalks and stuff. And when you look at that stuff, it is crystal clear. It is beautiful. It looks really good. I mean, there are minor touches, but it's very, very minor. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I'd expect it to not be revolutionary and mind-blowing, but if you played that way for a month and then all of a sudden you were forced to take a base PS4 and you tried playing the same game, I feel, coming down from the upper position, you'd probably feel it more than coming from the lower position up.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, as far as VR games, I don't really have much to say. Rush of Blood is like, I mean, the one thing I'll say is that list of the 5 PlayStation VR games, that were nominated for the award. Rush of Blood got jobbed because I'm like halfway through Rush of Blood, and Rush of Blood for 1999 is an incredible value. It is worth it. Most people say that many VR games are like way overpriced. This is the rare exception. This one is underpriced. I think they're over delivering. I got through the 3rd level boss, and I thought for sure I'm going to see the end credits, and I haven't seen the end credits. And I'm in this level where there are these gigantic spiders, and oh my goodness, have you been to that level yet, Steve?
Yeah, I beat it. I want to say
Okay.
there's spoiler, there's 8 levels. So if you're on 5, you got a little more to go. So it does speak. You're absolutely correct. It does speak for the amount of content that they put out for $20. I think it's a very good value, and I like the game a lot. And I can actually bridge that to what I've been playing. I made it a point this week to hop into the Vive a little more. Mostly because GameFly hasn't sent me my copy of Robinson the Journey. I got my email today, so for next show I'll be able to talk about it.
Oh wait, quick GameFly note. I sold my PS4 the Sunday before the Pro came out, and that Monday I sent Eve Valkyrie to GameFly. And guess what? That was like the 9th, I think, the 9th of November. And here we are, November 16th. They still haven't sent me nothing. And there's no, I have Battlezone. So it's good that I held on to Battlezone. But basically, PSA, don't sign up for GameFly, okay?
Yeah, they sold it under. I've had GameFly for probably 4 years straight, and it's worked out real well. I've been able to time it when I know a new game's coming out and make sure I have an empty slot, and 9 times out of 10 I'd get it on release day. So I think they underestimated their VR allotment. So like you, I had a game back to them right around that same time frame, and was hoping, I was timing it to get Robinson, and for a week, nothing. So I got my email today. So the one of one of the games I've been playing on Vive is Ghost Town, or Ghost something, Ghost Hunter Mine Ride or whatever. It's a kind of a corny name. I'd actually bought it a little while back in trying to prepare for what didn't become much of a Halloween festivities at my house. So, and the game, like Rush of Blood, surprised me. And just from the top, I'll say that it is well worth the $8-9 that it is. And if you like Rush of Blood, I'd recommend it. It's different, but at its core, it is a scary shooter, kind of on rails. So there's a lot of elements where you're not on a rail. So it is called Mine. You're in this little mine cart, but you spend a good portion of it out of the mine cart, and you're just walking. And it's not a room scale centric game, but of course, with any game that isn't quote unquote room scale, you can just move around in whatever your space is, and the HMD position will track you there. But when you kind of want to navigate outside of your room space, you do it with the Vive controller on the touchpad. So the game itself, if you look at screenshots and videos or whatever, it looks like it's just kind of cartoony and cheesy and maybe a little bit corny, but it's not. It is legitimate, like scary, like, and I wasn't expecting that at all. It takes place, it's a Western style mine ride, and, it was like an amusement park type thing. And, you would, there's these little bats and little things that pop up that are fake, kind of like cardboard cutouts. And, that was the original ride, but then things take a dark turn. And next thing you know, you're kind of off the beaten path, and you're not shooting cardboard cutouts anymore. And it has a lot of jump scares. I'll try not to give many away, but you'll stop and something will draw your attention. And then you'll turn around and things will just be there that weren't there before. And it's these creepy animatronic, it's like Terminator 2, like after his face has been melted off, like it's just kind of the inner robotic parts staring at you, and they're creepy as hell. And things just disappear and appear, and it has you jumping. I've only played it for about an hour, and I turned it off because it kind of got a little edged on it, which takes a lot. I think, of all the VR consumers, I'm probably, on a scale of 0 to 10, I'm probably like on the 9. Like, I was able to do chair in a room, and so I'm pretty tolerant, I think is my point. And this game for me was up there. The other game that I've been playing, I had some credit, and it had not occurred to me till earlier this week that I knew Obduction was out, but for whatever reason, I thought it was out only on the Oculus store, and was poking around in Steam and realized it was available there. And since I had the credit, and I think this was Sunday or Monday, they had a single day sale, and it was 20% off. So I picked Obduction up for, I think, $24. I think it's 30 now. And my thoughts behind it were, well, first thing I checked to make sure it was compatible with Revive, in which it was. And my thoughts were, this will get updated to Vive, and, I'll just seamlessly transition with it. So I've spent about an hour and a half or so in there, and it's solid. It's gorgeous. It's probably the best looking, that I can at least recall sitting here in this moment, the best looking Vive game that I played. And it kind of does this auto detect with your graphic card. And I have a GTX 1070, and it couldn't handle it with the auto detect. As soon as things would look great, as long as I didn't turn my head. And as soon as I turned my head, frame rate went to about 10. And I didn't actually measure that. So I had to dial it in. I had to actually put everything on its lowest setting. And I still turned the super sampling to about 130%, because I really like a sharp and crisp presentation. So even then, even on its lowest setting, it is gorgeous, just flat out gorgeous. And the game, we mentioned it, and we'd heard that it was the spiritual successor to Myst, and that's very true. The locomotion style is you can do a free roam, and I'm playing with the Xbox One gamepad. You can do a free roam, and there's also a blink teleportation. I actually like the blink teleportation better, because it kind of reminds me of the original Myst, where you just kind of page to each little spot. I don't have much to say from the story, because I haven't really pieced it all together, and it hasn't really clicked for me. But just kind of walking around or blinking around in this space and just looking at everything, I can tell it's top notch. And I've read that the time on it, it's taken people several hours to complete. It's a full-fledged title for $23. My gut just tells me it's going to be a very worthwhile pickup. So it kind of sets in a kind of a Western environment. It looks like it's 1800s Arizona or something, and there's mine carts and tracks. I don't know if all these games with the mine carts going on, but there's mine carts, and you're just kind of blinking around, and but there's an alien. And I think it's where the abduction element comes in. There's an alien presence to it, and after a couple minutes in, you kind of hit this edge, this boundary where you can't travel any further. And there's this water like shimmer And on the other side of that, you can see that it's the same world, but it's totally inverted colors. And so it seems to be playing on this parallel aspect, this current world that you're in, this Arizona-ish looking Western setting, and this alien-looking setting are the same place. And I'm anticipating that somehow I'll unlock ability to pass through this barrier. Like many VR games, you can just stick your head through a wall. And this is true here. So I stuck my head through this barrier to get a better look at that world, and it looks really, really cool. Some of the art style, the Sansa Peso, just kind of off the wall, really, really good art style. So I can tell I'm going to like it a lot, and I'll quit talking about it because I really can't say too much about it yet. It's just it looks good, and so.
Yeah, one thing I was going to ask about that, because I'm really interested in that game too. It does look really cool, but do you know if when it comes over to the Vive, are they going to be incorporating motion controllers on that?
I don't have absolute knowledge, but I would be very surprised if they didn't. So a lot of the there hasn't been a lot of interactivity, and I don't anticipate the game to have it. So when you need to do something like push a button, you look to aim, or whatever they call that. So you look at the button, and then I'm hitting A on the gamepad. So with motion controllers, I don't know if they would just have you aim right at that object natively, or if they keep the look to aim and you just click the trigger or something. I think if you would prefer the free roam movement over the blink movement, then the motion controller would probably be a lot better than with a gamepad. I did play it standing, and as a consequence of playing it with Revive, I guess for whatever reasons that they're not able to tap into the Vive's floor calibration. It's just on this title. Other Revive games I played didn't seem to have a problem. So what you have to do is you have to start the game, set your headset on the floor, and then hit the recenter button, and then you can stand up with it. So just that one little quirk when you're starting it up, not much of a problem. But because of that, I played it standing up. It just didn't feel right sitting down, and I think it's just a function of that. I think the final game for Vive users will probably do that better.
Is it absolutely guaranteed to be ported to the Vive, or?
Yeah, they've announced that it's coming to the Vive. Now, the thing is, I think, some people have said December, and I've seen Q1 2017. So it's working flawlessly. Maybe with the Vive, the performance may be a touch better than it currently is. I'm not sure if it's able to take use of the asynchronous reprojection. It's taxing. I mean, it's a good-looking game. It's a modern game. It looks really good. It's one of the best-looking games, if not the best-looking game, and that's on completely low. Like low everything, shadows, aliasing, post-processing, water, foliage. It's pretty deep graphical settings, and I had to put it on low on everything in my GTX 1070. Now, that being said, I was kind of deep in the game, and I hadn't rebooted my PC in a while, so I'll play around with the settings more, but I'd be very surprised if it didn't come to the Vive as well. They'd be losing out. They would have had to have received a lot of good money from Oculus.
Yeah. Okay. Unless anybody else has anything quick they want to mention, if we can call that episode 10.
That'll do it. Episode 10, and we'll see you guys next week. Also, if you could leave a comment on the YouTube page, and if you could leave a review on iTunes or anything like that, that helps us out. And that's basically it. So I'm signing off from Sacramento, California. Later.
Yeah, and this is Gary signing off too. Thanks for watching, guys.
Good night, everybody.